When did you and your government start to become so afraid of your own citizens?
That, of course, was Eva Chipiuk. Saw Eva today at a trial I was at. Want to tell you all about the trial because I was there, and you can't take a camera inside the courtroom, whether it's video, whether it's your iPhone taking pictures, whether it's anything. So I'll tell you all about today. But yeah, I'm outraged over the verdict, which you probably noticed. Guilty on mischief charges for Tamara, Leach, and Chris Barber. When we come back, what went on today?
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need the resolve to resist. So here's my post-millennial story today, which I got out within seconds, literally within 60 seconds of hearing the first verdict. And let me tell you, this was bizarre today. It was very strange. And here's the breakdown before I get into how things went. No, actually, before I do that, let me tell you how bizarre today was. Okay, we all got there for 10 o'clock, right? And I'm expecting I'll be back to do a broadcast probably by 1 o'clock. Should be home by noon. How long is it going to take to deliver this verdict? I think the Pat King verdict, which is the most recent example of this kind of thing, was maybe an hour and a half. So I was thinking we could optimistically, we could probably be out by 11:30 or noon at the latest. Then the judge announces that she's got a 135-page verdict. Do we want to hear the whole verdict? And she claims we'll be there all night. Or do we want to hear the summary? Well, when she said, who wants to hear the whole verdict, there wasn't a single hand went on. And literally, she asked those in the courtroom. And the courtroom, I have to say, was packed. And no, it wasn't packed with all of these poor people from Ottawa who had to suffer through the exhaust and the honking and not being able to walk down the same street every day. Or apparently not being able to go to work, although I found that one ridiculous. But no, those people weren't there today. All of the friends and supporters of Chris Barber and Tamara Leach, they were there today. There was even a contingent from Saskatchewan. I ran into probably a dozen people who watch this broadcast every day. And let me tell you, I don't care how long you've been in this business. And no, I haven't been in the YouTube business very long, but I've been in the communications business all of my adult life. It's very nice when somebody comes up and says, we really appreciate the work you do. We watch you every day. Love what you're doing. We support you. I tell you, that really, really does a lot to make my day. And I appreciate it. All of those people today who said that to me. But I wasn't there to hear nice things said about David Krayden. I was there. And by the way, I know it's 8 o'clock at night. We just got home. That the courtroom was packed with supporters of Chris and Tamara. And the judge, of course, didn't quite start at 10. She never does. This, of course, is Heather. I'm sorry, I have to look it up because for some reason, I can never remember her. Perkins McVeigh. I always want to say McVeigh Perkins. It's Perkins McVeigh. Heather Perkins McVeigh, Ontario judge. I must say, throughout the trial, she spent more than fair from what you would expect. But she started off the day by saying, okay, we're going to be a little late because we have to get the Zoom call going for those 3 people who couldn't make it. One of them was related to Chris Barber. The other 2, I think, were functionaries of the court who couldn't be there. So we had a 20-minute recess. As soon as we got into the courtroom after that, it was down to business. And the judge announced to anybody who doesn't put their phone on silent or vibrate, and if their phone makes a sound, we're taking it away from you for the whole day. A whole day. We can get it at the end of the day. So, of course, I'd already shut mine off. But yeah, there was some idiot in the crowd who didn't. And when the phone went off, she said, Who was it? Not a peep. Then she said, all right, next time that happens, somebody's going to be giving up their phone. So there were moments of comedy today. But it was very, very bizarre because when she said she was going to read the summary, I thought, oh, thank God. How many pages can it be? Well, I don't know what the difference was between the full 135-page discourse, epistle that she wrote. I don't know what to call it. Yes, it's a verdict, but it was a verdict she took a long time getting to. And the summary took almost 6 hours. Well, we had about 45 minutes off for lunch, so over 5 hours long reading this verdict. And the funny thing is, she finally got down to some brass tacks to say that both of them were guilty of mischief. When she said, okay, time for a break. So we're left there hanging, saying, what about the rest of the charges? Here, I'm going to show you exactly how this went, because my God, it was confusing. So we had basically 7 different charges here. 6 of them were shared by Tamara and Chris. The 7th was for Chris alone. So on the mischief count, guilty for both of them. On counsel to commit mischief. And this was bizarre. The Crown decided to stay that charge. And you say, what the hell does that mean? Well, it means basically to hold the charge. But when I looked it up in my legal dictionary today, it indicated that the charge can be revisited at any time in the future. So I'm not sure this is good news or bad news. And of course, I think if the sentencing is too lenient for the Crown, they will probably try to appeal, just like the Crown is doing to Pat King. They just don't want these people ever to get back to normal. That's what's going on here. So let's go through these charts. Counsel to commit mischief, state. Counsel to commit intimidation, not guilty. Intimidation, not guilty. Obstruction of police, not guilty. Counsel to obstruct police, not guilty. Chris was found guilty of disobeying a court order. And that was a very convoluted charge. Something about not properly enforcing the removal of vehicles or adhering to what the police had instructed in terms of a timeline. And I can tell you, this judge, apparently, I can't get into her head, but from what she was indicating in what she said today, I don't think she likes Chris very much, because she kept repeating one post that Chris had posted on TikTok. And there was a lot of foul language in the post. There was the F word maybe 3 or 4 times. This judge read that post 3 times at least, trying, of course, to suggest that this truck driver This truck driver is just a terribly ignorant man who swears too much. And I really, really resented the implication there because I've come to know and really like Chris Barber. He is a very intelligent man. Shall we say, he's a philosopher trucker. I've never run into anybody who has such profound thoughts about politics and the law and society and freedom, who hasn't spent much of his life delving into that subject matter. But he's been hard at work all of his adult life, driving trucks, hauling freight, but yet he has a gift for understanding, for comprehension of this subject matter that is very, very profound. And to see him belittled like this, I really resented that. Because Tamara didn't get the same treatment from this judge. And I could see that there was a little bit of, we can probably excuse Tamara for this. And I don't know if she's trying to drive a wedge between the two of them or if she's hinting that one will suffer more than the other. I didn't like what I saw and what I heard. But that's where it stood. And it took, as I said, over 5 hours to get through this. And then we came back after she finally got through her summation to talk about sentencing day. And no, they couldn't come up with a sentencing day. They came up with a day to come back to think about when they're going to have sentencing day. So I thought about this morning. We had a little bit of an ice storm again yesterday here in Ottawa. And thankfully, the ice storm didn't quite happen as predicted, and it turned into rain fairly early last night. So by the time I got up this morning, the roads were clear, and it was a safe drive in. By 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock today, the weather was feeling like spring. It was jacket weather. I didn't need a raincoat, didn't need an overcoat. Could have walked out in a shirt and shirt sleeves. It was so nice. And it reminded me of the weather on September 5th, 2023, when these two people were first hauled into this courtroom on day one of the Freedom Convoy trial of Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. The weather had almost returned to as it was on that post-Labor Day weekend morning when we didn't know what was going to happen. Did I think it was going to end up in a guilty verdict? At most times in this trial, no, I didn't. And I didn't because I thought the prosecution's case was so weak, was so pathetically weak, that there was no way these two could be found guilty of anything. Now, in a minute, I'm going to comment on what the implications, what the ramifications are, what the consequences of this verdict are for you and I, for freedom of speech, for freedom of assembly, the freedom to protest. What does it mean? Even before their sentence, just the very fact that they were found guilty, just the very fact that they spent 1 year and 7 months, 7 months in trial. What does that mean for Canada? But let's have a little trip down memory lane here and remember what the Freedom Convoy was all about.
Small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
Guys, sending love from Renfrew, Ontario. Go get them, boys and girls.
I'm Tim.
I'm Tony.
I'm Maggie.
And we're from Alberta.
Thank you for fighting for our freedoms.
Love you guys. You guys are the best, and waiting for you in Ottawa.
Thank you for fighting for us, truckers. Thank you for fighting us for truckers. It's Riley in Brooklyn, and we just wanted to say that we appreciate your loyalty for standing up for our freedom. To all you truckers out there, be safe. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And a big 10-4.
Big 10-4, Rubber Ducky.
Hi, my name's Nicholas. I'm Indigenous. I like to support my trucker.
Thank you, truckers. Good night. Thank you. I'm Jason Piper. Thanks again, Bobby. I love you guys.
They had to shut down this little discourse with the kids and the truckers. It was on an app, and they had to shut it down because Antifa infiltrated it. They couldn't stand the fact that little children were getting enthused about what these truckers were doing. Saving lives, potentially, is what these truckers did. They saved lives, prevented people from having to take the big V against their will. And I'm sure a lot of people are alive today and will be alive tomorrow because they had the freedom to make that choice. Thanks to Chris Barber, Tamara Leach, and the Freedom Convoy. No thanks to Antifa.
Vehicle is trucks too.
Thank you guys so much for everything you're doing. Us students here at Briarcrest are very happy and thankful for you guys fighting for us.
A big thank you to all the truck drivers that's heading to Ottawa. We support you 100%. Thank you for what you do. Keep up the amazing work.
For your loyalty for standing up for the government. Have safe drive, truckers.
I'm from Ottawa, and you got all my support.
God bless you all, honorable men and women, for waking up Canada. Get rolling there, guys. Good work.
God bless all the truckers and fighting for our freedoms. From our family, we love you all. Stay safe and stay strong. 10-4.
Yeah, the Freedom Convoy was transformational for me, changed the way I look at politics. I was very much a conservative elitist before I reported on the Freedom Convoy and I met the people there. I became very much a libertarian populist afterwards. And I really admired the work of these people. And like I said, yeah, they saved lives. Yeah, we all know the vaccine was safe and effective. Yeah. And we all know that staying 3 feet away from people was scientific, or was it 6 feet away from people? That was so scientific. And we all know masking did so much to prevent the transmission of the virus. And I'm sure we all know people who have been affected by that vaccine. And I'll leave it at that, because you know what happens if you go further. But here's what happened when Chris and Tamara showed up today.
You don't slip there, boys.
Look at this.
Hello there, big night. Good luck in there, buddy. Hi, Rail.
That's Tamara leaving.
Love you, Tamara. Good job. Love you, Tamara.
And that's Chris leaving at the end of the day.
Watch this.
Watch out, Jane. Watch out behind you.
Watch your dog.
Chris Barber leaving the Ottawa courthouse.
And thank you to my friend Chris Dacey for that video there. I was there at the end, so that little bit of Tamara Leach, I filmed that. I wasn't there to see the two of them arrive together. That's Chris Dacey's work, who has been fantastic covering the Freedom Convoy trial of Chris and Tamara, as well as Pat King. And he's done some tremendous work throughout the last year, downtown Ottawa. And I'll be talking about some other protests in a minute that have happened in downtown Ottawa. And they have not been subject to this BS. This is what this is. And I have to say, it's bullshit that this ever got to trial in the first place. When other people occupy the Confed building and nothing happens. But I'll get to that in a minute. So Chris, I talked to Chris during the break. He couldn't say anything on the record, couldn't comment because they haven't been sentenced yet. So there's nothing. And Lawrence Greenspon, who was really acting on both of their behalfs, but was technically Tamara Leach's lawyer, acted in first-rate capacity throughout the entire trial. And you couldn't ask for a more capable, more able, a more excellent lawyer than Lawrence Greenspon. And I really got to know the man throughout the last year and a half, and nothing but respect for the work he does. But, you know, I said, can you say a few words after the trial outside? And he said, yeah, but there's not much I can say. And I said, I just want to hear something. Summation of the day, Mark Greenspon.
Better afternoon than morning, that's for sure. Yes. Was it Meatloaf who said 2 out of 3? 5 out of 6 ain't bad. I can't comment on the mischief charge or any of the aspects of the judge's decision while the matter is still pending for sentence. And that's about all I can tell you at this point.
Fantastic.
I won't comment on that, no.
Fantastic, sir. Awesome.
And that disheveled-looking guy in the right hand of the frame, that was me. It looked terrible. The wind was blowing. What a day. I feel dead tired right now, but want to share this with you. But Chris, of course, as I said, couldn't say anything. And even his lawyer couldn't say anything, which is why we always talk to the lawyer, because generally these guys got out of there as fast as possible without saying anything, because the less they say, the better. But Chris had lots to say to me in the last interview we did. It's not the last we ever do, but it's the latest. That's what I want to say. The latest interview. I don't never say it's the last. It's the latest. The latest interview we did in February. It was on the 3rd anniversary of the invocation of the Emergencies Act, which was February 14th, 2022. 3 years ago. And so I had Chris on the show to talk about his thoughts about it. And he said some things then that I think he would probably have said today, had he been able to, and if he were allowed to. But let's listen. Let's listen to that.
And I would love to apologize to the judge for my use of language throughout my social media in my past. I remember back in my social media following was truckers, and that was basically my following. So language was usually something that I didn't care too much about and threw it around freely. And listening to my words in the courtroom there, I regret a lot of that. And I've done everything in my power to change that now. Anything I do for social media posts going forward. One of the biggest things that I noticed through Freedom Convoy was that there was a lot of young kids watching my social media posts, and they didn't need to hear that. So I always say that I probably grew the most throughout Freedom Convoy. I'm not an organizer. I'm not a protester. I'm not an activist. I'm just a blue-collar truck driver. I run a famous red truck now, and every time I have that truck on the road, it's got the big Canada label down the hood on it, and I've people yelling at me on the radio. People, it's hard to make a mile because you've always got somebody that wants to stop and have a conversation. But I'm more than willing to do that. I've met so many amazing people across the country in the last 3 years, and very appreciative for all the support we have. Tamara and I, like I said, the world's longest mischief trial in Canada, but we're still standing, and we'll continue to stand. And come March 12th, regardless of the decision, I might lose the privilege to cross that border, because of a criminal charge on my record, or I might wind up with 10 years in federal prison, like what they're asking for right now. But we saved a lot of lives through Convoy, and we made a lot of the good friends, and woke a lot of people up. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I hear these stories every day. I get messages from different people across the country just saying what a dark place people were in Canada throughout the convoy, or throughout the mandates. And we gave them light, and that was one of the biggest things that always brings me back to the point that we did the right thing. We're still standing. We continue to stand, and we'll stand no matter what happens in March.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, folks. Don't listen to Justin Trudeau. We need this kind of attitude in Canada right now, because let me tell you, Justin Trudeau will fight tooth and nail to stay as leader of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister of Canada, and he will use every trick in the Liberal handbook to do that. Yeah. I think Chris would have said the same thing today had he been able to, because he's a winner. This man is a winner, and he can't lose. He hasn't lost today. He got a guilty verdict today. But I almost cried when I watched that video last night, actually, because I wanted to put something in my post-millennial story from Chris, because I knew he wouldn't be able to comment today, but I wanted to put something in that story. And of course, he talks about the fact that he regrets a lot of the language he was using in his social media posts. And of course, that's exactly what this judge harped on today. And I looked over, I was sitting right behind Chris in the courtroom today, and I looked over at him when she was saying that. And his face didn't betray anything. But I could just see how sometimes you see a veil cover a invisible veil, but you see it's there. And I could see he was just disappointed that the judge would 3 times have to comment about the foul language. And she didn't, it's not that she said, look how much she swears. She repeated it so often, you couldn't miss it. And I just felt badly for my friend, Chris Barber. I've said from the beginning, I'm not being objective about this trial. I think it's a travesty. And I guess my view of objectivity now as a journalist, I've been a journalist since I was 16. I started working for my local newspaper in Comox. It was a Comox District Free Press when I was in high school. I used to have I had a column about how the youth feel about this. And I started writing as a journalist when I was 16. So I've been writing for many years, whether as a journalist, as a public affairs officer in the Air Force, or as a communications so-called expert on Parliament Hill, or doing what I'm doing now. But my view of objectivity now is not so much to just pretend I have no opinion. It's to say that I'm not in anybody's pocket. So I'm saying I want Mark Carney to lose this election, but I'm not telling you how to vote. And I'm not saying I'm going to say Pierre Poilievre's right 100% of the time because I have to. No, I hope he wins this election. I think he's the only alternative we have right now. He's the only person who can take on Mark Carney. He's the only party that can possibly win this election is the Conservative Party. So I hope he wins. But I'm not going to blindly allow him to say whatever he wants to say because I'm in his pocket or I'm in the bag. I'll still retain the right to be critical. And that's what I think a journalist has to be. You cannot be in any politician's pocket. Don't put your faith in politicians. Put your faith in people. People like Chris Barber. Put your faith in people like Chris Barber. That's where we need to go. So what are the consequences of this decision today? Well, I'll tell you the one that's obvious to me. And that's we have a two-tiered standard in this country for protest. If you're pro-Hamas, you can occupy the Confederation building. You can stop traffic on streets. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. Yeah, and look what happened in Toronto. Pro-Hamas demonstrators took over Union Station. Oh, nobody was charged? Nobody even arrested? Anybody going to trial for that? Are we going to have a trial for over a year and a half? How about mischief charges? Does the Crown want anyone to go to jail for 10 years like they want Chris Barber to go to jail for 10 years? No. No, they don't. And that's not happening. Here in Ottawa, we had Confed building occupied by protesters, demonstrators. I don't give a damn what they're protesting or demonstrating. But no, you shouldn't be allowed to occupy public or private buildings. And you know what? Freedom Convoy never did that. The streets of Ottawa were never safer than they were during the Freedom Convoy. It was never so tranquil and so joyous as it was during the so-called occupation of the downtown. And I'm sick of hearing these whining Ottawa residents talk about how business went down because of the Freedom Convoy. Because of what? 3 weeks? 4 weeks maximum? What about the COVID lockdowns? Did that have any effect on business in Ottawa? Don't make me laugh or cry. But don't tell me that the Freedom Convoy had any effect on Ottawa businesses except the idiots who decided to close their doors and not do truck or trade with those horrible truckers. Those people who stayed open never had better business in their life, never had better people eating their food, buying their products. Oh, and the horrible exhaust fumes, and somebody was smoking pot too in the market. I heard people who work in the market complain about exhaust fumes and marijuana smoke in the market like it never happens there. This was an utter joke. And they couldn't open their doors for business because they felt intimidated by these truckers. Joke. Whining bureaucrats in this whining downtown core of Ottawa. So there's two-tiered standard for protests from now on. You want to protest against COVID mandates, against the government authoritarian measures? Well, there's a tier for you. And you could go to jail. But at the very least, you're going to get lawfare for a year and a half to 3 years. Now, how much of Tamara Leach's life, how much of Chris Barber's life has been consumed with legal wrangling? Well, but Tamara, it's been at least 3 years, and same for Chris. It started the minute they got arrested in Ottawa at the end of the Freedom Convoy, and it's still going on today. They still don't know their fate. They still haven't been sentenced. They got a verdict today, but it goes on and on and on. And what does that mean? Well, it means if I want to protest what the government is doing or saying, I had better think damn hard about the consequences for my life, for my job, for my family, for my wallet, for all of these things, because the government's going to screw me to the wall. Even if I don't end up going to jail, even if I don't end up with a criminal record, I'm going to go through lawfare. I'm going to have to keep showing up in court. I'm going to have to keep paying legal bills. I'm going to have to keep paying hotel bills and accommodation bills and restaurant bills and all other kind of bills that come with constant travel and the constant need to be showing up in court every 3 to 4 weeks. And that's why this is the great chill. If you want to protest what your government is doing to you, you'd better do it in a way that it impacts absolutely nobody, so that nobody knows you're even protesting. That's what I heard today from this judge. Well, it's sure you have your freedom of speech. Sure you have your freedom of assembly. But make sure it doesn't have any impact on everybody else's property rights. And they didn't even offend any property rights. They believe in property rights. But that's what we've come down to in this country. Don't bother to protest, because we're going to make you pay for that protest. And if you protest, make it such a small protest. Make it so inconsequential that nobody notices, that nobody's impacted by it. And I'm sorry, but that's the message that comes out of this trial. And that's the message that came out today. I'm hoping for the best for Chris and Tamara in the sentencing. I want them to walk away from this with the least possible damage, because I think they're both Canadian heroes. I think they fought for our safety. I think they fought for our lives. I think they fought for our freedom. And I think they deserve better than this. And we better damn well ensure that this judicial system in Canada is equal for everybody and isn't two-tiered, because that's exactly what it is right now. I'll be back again tomorrow with Eva Chipiuk. She was one of the Freedom Convoy lawyers. She was one of the lawyers, as you saw at the very beginning of the show, who was at the Emergencies Act inquiry, and she gave it to Justin Trudeau like no other lawyer I've ever seen. She is one hell of a woman. She's one hell of a lawyer, and I can't wait to ask her about her thoughts on what happened today here in Ottawa at the provincial courthouse. Don't miss the show. We'll be back at our regular time. And you know what? We're going to continue to resolve to resist. We're going to continue to fight Mark Carney, and we're going to continue to give you all the news that you need to know. Thank you for watching tonight. I'll be back again tomorrow. Good night. God bless and Godspeed. From Ottawa, the nation's capital, this is David Krayden.